Thank you, Bill. Way on here. Good morning to everyone. I know the very first question's out of your mouth. What's he doing up there? Well, that's a good question. Valerie and I talked about a year ago about possibly of Laity Sunday. I told her, I'd like to be considered possibly giving one of the lay talks. I was a lay leader for over 12 years at this church, and we had about 6 Laity Sundays that were able to work in the schedule. And so I know Josh started his preaching career. He was one of the first ones to give a talk here. But I thank you for coming, and this is what the Lay Sunday is about, to give the preachers a chance to kind of take some time off here. And I want to thank Ralph and Bill, who else? Mike, Jamie, I know there's somebody else. Jenny, of course. Jenny, thank you very much. They'll Know We're Christians by Our Love was the first song. That was their opening hymn. But I've left it kind of open. They'll know we're Christians by our blank. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be one word, but I've got 3 stories that happened to me asking about being a Christian. They're all true. I'm like Bill Holmes, a good friend Bill. You don't want to let the facts get in the way of a good story. Okay, so just go with that. First story. My work life, I was athletics manager for the Garland Parks and Recreation Department under Mr. Bob Hall, who was the director for a long time. Back in the spring of 1988, they moved us from downtown Garland out to Comer Park on Apollo Road. It was a big house out there. We renovated it, made it into an office building. Well, the first week we were out there, it was about 5:30. We work 8 to 5 in the administrative offices. About 5:30, all of a sudden I hear, hello, hello. Golly, what's that? That doesn't sound familiar. And I got it from my desk, and my office was one of the first offices there down the hallway. Get out, and here's this older gentleman here. He had his Bermuda shorts on. You could tell he was out for a walk. We had built a hiking bike trail, or walking trail, I guess, around the park. And I said, can I help you, sir? And he said, what is this building? I said, well, it's the Parks and Recreation Administrative Offices. I said, we've just moved out here, and we've done some improvements. And he said, well, what do you do? I said, well, we run we run different programs, Parks and Recreation, athletic programs. Well, about that time, thank goodness, my phone rang. And I thought he'd leave, go out the door. Phone rang, went back to my office, picked up the phone, took care of business, hung up, turned around. Here he is, right by my desk. So I said, sir, I think we've got to go. I said, that was my wife that just called and said, I'm late for supper. It really wasn't, but I just told him that, hoping he didn't get down. So I stand up, and he's looking back behind me. He's kind of looking right through me over my right shoulder, and I couldn't figure out what he was looking at, and I didn't want to turn and look. And I said, can I help you? Can we need to get on here? And he said, are you a Christian? Wow, that was a question I wasn't expecting. And I said, yes, sir, I am. I said, why do you ask? No particular reason. I said, okay. And so I kind of just didn't want to be rude, but I nudged him out, and he finally went outside, went out the front door. You know the first thing I did? I locked the door. I didn't want to come back. Okay. They'll know we are Christians by our what? Well, I couldn't figure out why he was looking or why he asked that question. I go back into my office. Here's why that I think. It's my Bible that I kept with me all of the years I worked, my work life, and I was teaching and working for the city. And it was like this. It wasn't with the spine out. It was on its side there, and you could see it a little bit better back then. But I couldn't help but wonder, is this why he asked me if I was a Christian? He saw my Bible. Well, I'll never know. I saw him again. Never saw him again. But there's the one way you can fill it in. How we display our Bibles. Is that one way? Okay, story number 2. Out here in Fate, Texas, other side of Rockwall, there's a big country and western dance floor, steakhouse, Southern Junction. Who's been to Southern Junction? Okay. It's a good place to be. And this is about, 15, 20 years ago. And we were out there at a party. We were at a big table of about 16. And, of course, the live band is playing and everything. About that time, they quit playing. They were going to take a break. The house lights went up. Everybody's kind of just sitting there, kind of just taking it easy a little bit. And about that time, here comes two guys. They've got this big tub. They've got one hand on each side of it, and they're walking around, and it's full of ice-down, long-neck beers. So they start passing them out. Now, I don't remember what they were celebrating or what they were trying to acknowledge or anything, but they were passing out this beer. The guy next to me, they handed him a beer, and he said, "Thank you." He turns, hands me one. I said, "No, thank you." He said, "What's wrong? You don't like our beer?" I said, "Well, technically, no. I don't like your beer. I'm sorry. I just never was a fan of beer." And he looks at me and said, "Well, are you some sort of Christian?" Some sort of Christians. Now Christians are categorized, okay? Classified. I said, "Well, yes, sir, I am a Christian." He kind of steps back and he goes, "Okay, no beer for the Christian." Starts pointing at me. Okay, that's good. The guy that was next to me says, "Man, I can't believe he embarrassed you like that." And I said, "Embarrassed? I took it as a compliment. That was great. He called me a Christian because I don't drink beer. That's pretty good." Okay, here's another one. They'll know we are Christians by our beverage choices? I don't know. I'm figuring that out. Story number 3. And I promised to have you out of here by 1. So, okay. Barbara, keep it short, keep it short. About 15 years ago, I had my nephew, Grant, was in the 3rd grade in elementary school in Richardson. And he called up my mother, y'all know Mary Ruth Finigan here, my mom, his grandmother. And he said, they're having a bring your grandparent to lunch day at school. And can you come? Well, she calls me and says, "Can you take a few hours off? Can you drive me over to the school?" And I said, "Well, let me ask Bob," and I'm sure. So I begged Bob for a few hours off, and he gave me some. So anyway, we're going over there. We're going to go to lunch day for the school. I'm driving my Dodge Caravan. I'm on Arapahoe Road going west out toward UTD. Something's not right with my van. It's just not driving right. And I stop at a stoplight. Light turns green. I hit the gas, and it doesn't want to go. So I hit the gas again, and finally it starts going. You know that feeling when you got a flat tire? You know it's a flat tire. So I said, I got to get off the road here. I got to get out of traffic. Turned right on Floyd Drive there off of Arapahoe. It's still traffic, so I went down a little bit, turned to the first residential street. Turned out to be a cul-de-sac. Okay, well, the weather that day was about like it was last Tuesday here. Foggy, rainy, cold, drizzly, miserable day. It was not a good weather day. And so I get out, walk around there, and son of a gun, flat tire. And nobody had to tell me. I could pretty much tell it was flat. And then notice the concrete, streets all wet. Here's a nail, a bent nail right on top of it. Okay. Let me take a quick commercial break here, tell you another little story here. We'll get back to it. Hold your horses. I like to consider myself in most any situation that comes up, and I've tried to do it. Told my kids this, told my grandkids, PMA. Cooper and Bronman, what's PMA? Positive mental attitude. Way to be positive, by the way. Way to be positive. Yeah, pretty good. Positive mental attitude. The girls here, they get tired of hearing that all the time. But that's so. I thought I would be, I had to look at it. I was going to use a positive attitude there. But I tell you what, when I got to thinking about it, my mental attitude wasn't very positive. Okay? Quick story. There's a lady in France a few years ago, at age 115 years old, was recognized as the oldest living person in the world. This young reporter for a magazine in France called her up and said, "I'd like to interview you." This was let's go back 5 years, 110 years old. He wanted to interview her. She said, "Sure, come on out." So they did. He did the interview, put the article in the paper, in the magazine. They agreed to do it every year on her birthday. Okay? See how things were going. So at 114, man calls up this lady and says, "Can I come interview you?" And she says, "Sure, no problem." So he comes out, they do the interview, no problem. He gets up to leave, and he says, "Well, I guess I'll see you next year." And this 114-year-old woman looks at him and says, "Well, I don't see why not. You still look pretty healthy." Now, does that not epitomize positive mental attitude? Okay. All right, back to our regular scheduled program now. I'm standing out on the circle here on this cul-de-sac looking down at my tire thinking, okay, what do I got to do? I got to find my jack, number one, find a crowbar, find the spare tire. Anybody know where their spare tire is? I still don't know where mine is, and it's on a Dodge van. I said, well, where can I find these? Owner's manual. Next question, where's my owner's manual? Okay, so I'm trying to figure this out. Of course, I hadn't started doing anything yet, and about that time, here comes this white paneled van. Only had two windows on it, the driver's side window and the front passenger front window. And on the side of it was a sign painted, and it was real faded. You had to look at it real good. It said, Jackson and Sons Swimming Pool Repair. I said, well, that's great. It's what I really need right now is a swimming pool repairman coming to help me out here. He comes up and rolls the window, looks out, and he says, can you use some help? I said, well, yes, sir, I appreciate that. Bless you. Yeah, I can do all the help I can get. So he said, okay. I said, I think we can fix it. He hadn't even looked at it yet. He says he thinks he can fix it. So he goes back in his truck and he opens it up. And I was in charge of pools for about 15 of the years I worked for the city, and I knew of swimming pool equipment. He didn't have any. He had this hydraulic jack, big jack type of thing. He had an air compressor, and he had a gasoline generator that would hook up the compressor. He pulls those out, and next thing you know, he's got the tire off. He's got the lug nuts, the tire off. He's already used that special tool. He's plugged the hole in the tire. He pulled the nail out. He plugs the hole, hooks up the compressor, puts the nozzle on for a tire nozzle, gets going, pumps it up, and we got air in the tire. And I hadn't done anything yet, okay? So, while we were talking a few times there, I know I must have said, bless you, quite a few times, blessings. One of the things I always remember about blessing, how do you remember Red Skelton? Okay, Red Skelton, for y'all that don't, Red Skelton was probably he was a real funny, he was a comedian, he had a lot of characters. The funniest thing about watching the Red Skelton show was that he never finished a bit or a skit because he's always started laughing at himself, and you'd end up laughing at him. But he was very sincere. Every time he'd finish his show, he'd have a big audience out here. He would thank his guests for being there. He'd thank all the people for showing up. But he always ended it with 4 words. And I'll always remember that. And may God bless. Wasn't God bless you. Wasn't God bless everybody here. And may God bless. That was his sign off. And I thought that was pretty neat. I've always remembered that. Okay, so we're fixing the tire and everything. About Mom says, Steve, and I look over and she's got a $20 bill she's handing out the window to me. I said, okay. So I reach in my pocket and I pull out another 20 and I go up to him and said, Mr. Jackson, I said, we'd like to give you this for helping us out. He said, oh no, I can't take it. Can't take your money. I'm not going to take your money. I said, I wish you would. And he said, oh no. I said, well, you've been such a blessing. He says, I'd like to ask you one question though. Uh-oh. He said, are you a Christian? That question again. Well, I mean, I need to wear a sign or something. Said, yes, I'm a Christian or something. I said, well, yes, I am. I said, why do you ask? He said, well, you've only blessed me about a dozen times here since I've been here. And he said, I thought maybe, he said, let me ask you this. He said, are you a true Christian? Well, I had one guy ask me I'm a Christian. Another one asked me if I was some sort of a Christian. And this one he's asked me, am I a true Christian? And I said, well, why do you ask that? And he said, well, you've blessed me here. I thought maybe you had to have extra credentials to do all the blessing or something. No, not really. So anyway, nothing from that. So I don't know if that means now, they know you're Christians by the number of times you bless somebody? A lot of different ways. He packs up his equipment, gets back in, gets in his truck, drives off. I've got a tire. And I know the question you're asking. Yes, we did make it in time for lunch, so we did make that way. Okay, well, before he left, I asked him, I said, my wife and I have a swimming pool in our backyard that we're having some plumbing problems. I said, can I prevail on your services to come out and show me what I need to do because we've got a water leak? And he said, yeah, I guess so. He said, and I said, do you have a card or something? Well, he gets in his truck and he's messing around. Finally, he comes up with a card. And it's about a faded blue as the sign on the side of the panel van. I think they were painted by the same guy. Anyway, okay. And he says, I think that number will be good. He thinks that number will be good. Okay, so he drives off. So the next 2 or 3 days later, I get that card. I dial the number about 20 times. It's still ringing. Nobody ever picked it up. Okay, now again, you're talking about 20 years ago. We didn't have the cell phones or anything there. I had a pager, but unless you got a quarter and a payphone, you're not going to who to call. It's not going to help you much. But I called that number. Next day I called it, never did. I even picked up this big book. Some of you might remember it was Yellow Pages. Y'all ever heard of Yellow Pages, some of you? Okay, Brahman, no, okay. I could not find any listing for Jackson & Sons swimming pool anywhere in that Yellow Pages. I even called the Better Business Bureau of both Collin County and Dallas County. No such listing. You believe in Christians now? You believe in, what is the word I'm looking for? I'm sorry? Guardian angel, thank you. I do. Okay? I've never been able to get a hold of that person, but we've got it. Okay. Where do we go with this? There's 3 examples. I don't know if God was wanting me to answer a question to prove that I'm a Christian, or am I going to help these people? But I can remember 3 different times. Have you been asked that? Has anybody been asked? Have you ever been asked, are you a Christian? The thing that I remember, though, is a whole other set of questions to do. Let me read you a story. This is a book called Yes, Lord, I Have Sinned, but I Have Several Excellent Excuses. Okay? That's a good one. I meant to say something a while ago. Paul, I'm sorry, that story about that lady in France, you could give credit to you. I figured you were asleep and I didn't want to bother you back there. Anyway. Yes, Lord, I've sinned. Have you heard about the minister who dreamed that he had died and was trying to get into heaven? When he approached the gate, St. Peter told him he needed 100 points to get in. That's fine. Proudly the minister said, well, I was a minister for 43 years. That's fine, said St. Peter. That's worth 1 point. 1 point, is that all? Cried the minister. Just 1 point for 43 years of service? Yes, that's correct, answered Peter. Well, I visited a lot of shut-ins. There's another point. I worked with young people. St. Peter said, 1 more point. I developed a number of fine scout programs. 1 more point, that makes 4. You only need 96 more. Oh no, said the minister in a panic. I feel so helpless, so inadequate. Except for the grace of God, I don't have a chance. St. Peter smiled and said, grace of God, 96 points, welcome in. If you're asked if you're a Christian, can you answer that question? Yes or no? I don't think you'd lie about it and everything, but what if you're asked, why are you a Christian? How did you become a Christian? What do you do to earn the right to Christian? The 2 examples I like to give is Martin Luther's one of them. Martin Luther's claimed that all you had to do was profess your faith in God, and that made you a Christian. That's a skinny thing to do it. James, Jesus' half-brother, who wrote the book of James in the Bible, said, oh no, you need to do more. You need to follow along with that. He's got more sayings that you can make into refrigerator magnets on your refrigerator for things like that. But James thought it was different. You had to do more than that. Okay? So I think that's what we're doing. I said, they'll know we're Christians. I think you can recognize you're Christians. It's after the fact that we need to do it. Thank you very much for your attendance, and may God bless.